of the board for budget hearing is now in session. I will start by making sure all the trustees can hear. Terry?
Yes,
Terry, are
I'm
you
here.
there?
Yes, I'm here.
Very good, thank you. Celeste?
Present.
Very good. Rusty?
Yes, sir.
Excellent. Bo?
Yeah, I'm here, Randy.
Joanne?
Present. Thank you,
And
Randy.
Kurt? Thank you. And Kurt?
Yes.
Thank you, Kurt. I'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We need to approve our agenda for the evening. Is there any changes to the agenda as presented?
None from administration, Randy.
Okay, can we have a motion, please, to approve our agenda as printed?
Yes,
Mr. President, I make the following motion, Joanne Wilson, to approve the agenda as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Please say yes, and this is a roll call vote.
Mr. Droppers?
Yes.
Mrs. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Rathburn?
Yes.
Dr. Shelton Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Van Antwerp?
Yes.
Mrs. Navarro?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Very good. We'll proceed with our agenda as printed. And we'll now open our budget hearing for the proposed budget for 2020-21. And I want to introduce Superintendent Beelang, who's going to make some opening comments.
Thank you, Randy, and good evening, board members. As we continue down this path of budget amendment, as I mentioned last week when we first talked, or not first talked, but when we talked about the budget, this is one of the most difficult budget situations that I've ever seen, and perhaps the most difficult that you've seen as well. We went from being very optimistic back in February when the governor released her budget to a period of great uncertainty now as we close out the 19-20 budget and look to adopt and present the 2021 budget. So as you know, we're required by law to have a budget in place by July 1st. What we're presenting this evening is what we hope is a worst case scenario budget. Our planning assumptions are conservative, and we're informed in building this budget by the same organizations that we've previously used in building other budgets. That's the House and Senate Fiscal Agency, Citizens Research Council, the Michigan School Business Officials, the Governor's Office, the School Equity Caucus, and other professional organizations that we traditionally have used. And all of these organizations are helping inform the assumptions we landed on. The more challenging one is the student count. We at this point just don't know what our count will be. We're budgeting for a few fewer students that Paula will review a little bit later on. So that is a big unknown. There's pupil accounting issues that have to be worked out with the state for all school districts as to how they will count pupils. So we're still awaiting a lot of information for the unknowns that we are working through. I just want to make sure everyone knows this is not our final budget. This is our starting point. As the unknowns become known, especially on the revenue side, we'll be making adjustments on the expenditure side and prioritizing, reviewing all of the reductions that are included in this year's budget proposal, and making amendments to the budget and to the assumptions as they come through. I understand that as late as this evening, things still are changing. I understand that the governor may have some type of a budget deal on the 19-20 budget that will be released in the days upcoming. Unfortunately, we don't have the luxury of waiting to hear what those are. So we're continuing down our path of being conservative in what we do, but we're anxiously awaiting to hear what the governor has to say and what they've come up with. There are a number of potential fixes to the 1920 budget that they're working through, and any news that's, that can stop our proration, the anticipated proration, would be good news for us. So that's really all I wanted to say, and I'd just like to introduce Paula Johnson, and she will be assisted later on in her presentation by Brad Galen, who will cover one of the slides on the staffing side of issues, so you have a better understanding of some of the things we're doing. So I would really appreciate, and I think Paula would too, if you could jot questions down in your notes, hold your questions until after the presentation. Board members will have a chance to ask questions, get clarification on the information presented, and then Randy will handle the public hearing portion of the meeting with the phone calls in. So before I turn over to Paula, are there any questions of me about what I just said from board members?
So I have a question for Randy, Joanne Wilson. So when I look at the agenda, usually the public comments have changed. And at what point is comments going to be read, phone calls accepted? And I see that my board comments don't appear until number 4. So I'm trusting Randy to lead us in the comments, and the comments updated as we're going along.
Yeah, Joanne, our plan is to take calls from the community during the budget hearing. And that will also, before that, give trustees an opportunity to ask questions. And then we'll move into our regular meeting where we will accept comments from emails that Michelle will read, as we've done in the past. And the reason we're doing it this way is the advice we received from the attorneys at MASB.
So Randy, I see the notice on and so right now, phone calls for the budget are not being received, and general comments are being received when?
After the budget hearing closes.
So Randy, if I could, I can just clarify. So phone calls regarding the budget will be accepted once the budget presentation has concluded and board members have had a chance to answer questions and ask questions. Then when we go back into the regular meeting, we'll read the public comments that have been submitted by the times that we normally ask them to be submitted by, which is an hour before the board meeting. And then there'll be another opportunity for board members to make comment during the regular portion of the meeting. And then we'll finish up with the action items.
All clear?
Okay, if there are no other questions, then I'll just turn this over to Paula Johnson, who will take us through the budget. Paula?
Okay, you probably can't see my screen yet. Good evening, trustees. Let's see. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Good evening, trustees and Superintendent Beeling. Welcome to my first virtual budget hearing in my 22-year career in school finance. This evening, we are going to go over again the 2019-20 budget and the assumptions that were taken into consideration in preparing that amendment, and then the preliminary budget for 2021. Assumptions. Included in your board packet for 1920, we amend our debt fund, our school service fund, and our building site sinking fund at the end of the year, and that's considered amendment number 1. So included are the highlights regarding the debt retirement fund, and we are projected to end the year in that fund with an increase in fund balance of approximately $334,000. We levied 6.85 mils, the same amount that we levied last year, to pay our required debt service payments. Keep in mind, we are down to just the 2016 and 2019 related issuances related to the construction that's currently going on in the district. School Service Fund, also included in your packet, is comprised of those three different funds. Just to go over some of the highlights from food service, when we shut down for COVID-19 in March, Susan and her group immediately went into the unanticipated school closure mode on March 18th and continued that through the end of June. She has served thousands of meals. I believe it's 192,000 plus meals related in that program to people in our community since the COVID closure happened. Because of the executive order that the governor put out in March, we had to continue paying those food service workers, even if they were not working. So the budget for the school service fund is showing a decrease in fund balance of potentially $127,000 because the original budget that was adopted last July did not take that into consideration. And meals generated from the unanticipated school closure program do not equal what we would have received through the National School Lunch. Included also are the bookstore funds for Central High and Northern High, and also the school service funds, which is what we refer to as the internal funds. That was included in your packet. Moving on to the general fund final amendment for 1920. It's our second amendment of the year on the general fund. And I brought this to the board on June 8th, and since a lot of things are changing, but just to go over the assumptions that were taken into consideration at the time that this amendment was put together. The consensus revenue estimating conference was held on May 15th. At that point in time, they estimated that the state school aid fund was going to be $1 billion short to pay out related state school aid payments for the 1920 school year. At that point in time, legislators would have to work through that, where the budget director, the state treasurer notifies the budget director of the shortfall of not being able to make all those payments all the way through the year, because we receive our 1920 school aid payments through August. So at that point in time, they recognized that they did not have enough money to pay us, and the legislators would have to work through that, come up with a deal to either take money from the rainy day fund or to work through legislation issues related to the COVID money that the state of Michigan has received. At that point in time, the final amendment was prepared with the assumption that we would have an estimated reduction in funding of $650 to $700 a pupil. That equates to approximately $5.8 to $6.2 million for Portage Public Schools. And to this, as of the preparing of this amendment, we weren't certain if it was going to occur in 1920, but we were preparing for it. And as Mark has alluded to, just shortly before 6 o'clock today, they're pushing out information that a potential deal has been reached, and we may not see this proration. But we do not have specific details on that. So we are moving forward as planned as a worst case scenario in this amendment. It's just a coincidence that this deal has been reached on the same night that we are adopting our final amendment. Those numbers for the consensus revenue estimating conference had the group plan a rare third conference to take place at the end of August, beginning of September. I'm not sure if a date has been set for that at this time. Typically, they only do 2 revenue estimating conferences a year, and adding a third one is a pretty substantial thing to do because I think they want to get a good feel on the fact of what are those revenues looking like one more time, to dial everything in. The general fund final amendment, because of the COVID closure, we did see savings in our substitute costs, our contracted agreement with Grand Rapids Building Services for maintenance and custodial services. We experienced savings in transportation because we did not have buses on the road every year. And unfortunately, based on the governor's order, we did have to furlough contracted staff with the exception of a few essential employees after spring break. So that was reflected as a savings in the general fund. So included in your packet for the resolution, the amendment number 2 for the general fund shows that expenditures would exceed revenues by $5.8 million at the end of June. Again, worst case scenario, and that entire deficit of $5.8 million would hit against our fund balance because we did not have time to prepare for any of these said cuts, finding out about it so late in the year. So based on the worst case scenario for 1920, the district would end with a fund balance of approximately 2.95% if we were to take a proration cut of $650 per pupil fund. And here's a graph showing that same information just in a different way for a history of what our fund balance has done, how our fund balance is carried year over year. I also prepared this slide for you back in June to show you that if we did not take the $650 proration cut, how we would end the year with our fund balance percentage. Keep in mind, this is an estimated number. We won't have a final number until all revenue and all expenditures have hit to the general ledger for the year. But we always predict as an estimated number when we do an amendment what that percentage would be. So those are my highlights on 1920. I'm going to now move into 2021. So looking at the Building Site and Sinking Fund, we renewed the Building Site and Sinking Fund back in November, and that has now been passed, and it's good for another 5 years for us to levy. We levied $500,000 for the Site and Sinking Fund, but for the first time, we are going to experience a Headley rollback in the Building Site and Sinking Fund, and where we cannot levy that full amount, and we will only be levying 0.4988 mils. This is a different calculation that is done compared to the general fund Headley rollback calculation. So the L4029 that the district will be sending out to the taxing municipalities will show the 0.4988 mils for the Building Site and Sinking Fund. And that will in turn get passed on in the property tax bills. Proceeds from the Building Site and Sinking Fund are being used district-wide. There's a listing of the proposed projects for 2021, and also it touches on in the 1920 related to the things that we were doing throughout the district. Also included is the resolution for the service funds, for the debt retirement fund. We are levying 6.85 mils again for 2021 to pay our debt service obligations. This includes those 2016 and 2019 issues that I spoke of earlier. And next year, in July of 2021, barring nothing drastic happens to property tax values, because COVID-19 because values were in pre-COVID-19 for the 2021 year, if property tax values were to decrease, we would have, it could affect how we levy to make those payments. So if property tax values remain the same, we would be levying less mills next year to pay our obligated payments because we planned to take on an additional millage for the debt fund. At this time, we are not pursuing that avenue. Also included is the lunch fund and the service funds. We brought to you breakfast and lunch changes for next year to comply with the Healthy Hunger Free Kids Act. And the food service fund continues to contribute back to the general fund for indirect costs, and we're projecting that to be $185,000 for this year. And we will start the Meet Up, Eat Up program in July, just as soon as we're done with the unanticipated school closure. The school service fund, which includes those prior internal funds that we used to refer to, had the GASB 84 pronouncement, moving those student activity accounts into a school service fund, and that has been postponed until 2021, but we are ready for that implementation. Just wanted to show you how the state school aid fund receives its revenue proceeds and what the revenue estimating conference is looking at when they all meet to see if we're hitting target levels. This is a diagram showing the revenue sources related to 1920 and the percentages of revenue that is projected to inflow into the state school aid fund. Now, obviously, this is before revenue estimating conference, but things like sales tax, use tax, tobacco tax, state education tax, income tax, casino tax, lottery, liquor, real estate transfer tax. You can see where all of these items have a bearing on how well the economy does. And if the economy is not doing well, then revenue targets are obviously not hit. And that's why there was this projected shortfall coming our way after the May revenue estimating conference was held. In February, Governor Gretchen Whitmer came out with her executive budget where she proposed an increase of $225 per pupil for us for the 2021 school year. She was recommending that we have an increase for at-risk funding for 31A of $60 million statewide. She was proposing an increase in GSRP funding statewide, and she was pursuing that Section 41 bilingual continues, and that is an area that the district does receive funding for. Typically, after that, we receive a House and a Senate budget so that we can pretty much determine or help us determine what our funding will be for the next school year. Because of COVID, those budgets have not been prepared from House and Senate, even though the law was put into place last year that they would have budgets passed by July 1. So all of that wraps in and ties into relation to this potential budget deal that was possibly, that appears to be possibly reached as of today at 6 o'clock when news came out. So what we're accustomed to isn't exactly what happened for this year. So some of the things that we do know that are incorporated into this 2021 budget that you've received is that our retirement rate is increasing from 27.5% to 28.21%. Our UAAL retirement rate is increasing from 12.41 to 14.51%. The majority of our employment group contracts are up for negotiation this year with the district, with the exception of the PEA and the secretarial group. So those related increases have been incorporated into the budget. One thing that we have done is we have not opened up purchasing yet for the 2021 school year district-wide. We decided as an exec team to be cautious on that approach and only open up for maintenance and operations and technology and bond related items until we had a better handle on what our funding is going to be. And it sounds like that is going to be revealed soon. I also included, we know what our insurance rate costs are based on our renewal timing. for July through December. We know what those rates are, but we don't know what our rates are going to be yet for insurance. For January through June, we find out those rates in December. So we planned for a 3% increase in regards to those insurance rates. So, sorry about that. So typically when you build a budget, you know what your foundation allowance is, or you know how you can dial in on between three different numbers, executive, House and Senate versions of recommended funding. It helps you get a better idea of what the final number will be when it goes through committee. Well, this year we did not have a solid number to build a budget on. At the time that we were putting together the 2021 budget, it was stated that the foundation cut that we would receive in the 1920 school year would still be continued into 2021. We still have yet to know what our 2021 per pupil funding allowance will be, but it was built on that $650 proration cut. Whereas this year we received $8,111 per student. The budget was built on $7,461 a student. So that in turn also relates to the fact that the state school aid fund was also $1 billion short for 2021. I'm sure details are yet to come in regards to how are they going to fix 2021 is the deal that was just reached for 1920. It does feel like both years are coming together almost as 2 years as one, but we have to look at each year separately and adopt budgets accordingly. So with the $650 proration cut was established in this 2021 budget for revenue. So you'll see a drastic drop in state school aid. Another thing that we do not know is the exact instructional format. How is that going to be delivered to our students when September arrives? We know that I believe that the governor is supposed to release information regarding the return to learn tomorrow, and we're adopting our budget tonight. So as I stated, I included the $650 proration cut in the budget, built the budget on $7,461 a pupil. Also built in a 25 student FTE drop. So a 25 student drop from our February count, and then keep in mind that our blended count is a 90-10, 90% from the fall, 10% from the spring count. So it was built on the 8896 blended number. Another thing that I do want to bring to the board's attention is that the general fund property tax levy is still experiencing the Headley rollback for the non-PRE, and we are dropping from 17.7005 mils to 17.5695 mils. So that's about $300,000 of state aid that we do not get to recognize because our property tax values are increasing faster than inflation. Included in the budget was also the KRESA enhancement millage that just passed, and that equates to $3.2 million for us. And I just want to bring to the board's attention, as you are aware, based on preparing the budget at the $650 per pupil cut, we had to reduce our budget by $8 million to balance, and we reduced by approximately $7.6 million. So that's where you will see where expenditures is slightly exceeding revenues for 2021, less than 1% of our overall budget. I just want to stress to the board that this is a very volatile moving document where a lot of things are going to change. Things are going to be monitored very closely, and I would predict that we will have changes relatively soon into the school year related to this budget. So based on the fact that we had to adapt based on that reduced foundation allowance, we had to make cuts to the overall budget. And included in this preliminary budget are cuts of 7% reduction to administration costs via compensation reductions, making assignment changes, a reduction in base pay. Steps were not incorporated into this budget, and a reduction in other benefits that are offered. Now, I just want to point out that different administrators and different individuals throughout the district are on a different time frame with contracts. So when they would actually see these reductions occur depends on the start date of their contract. We also made reductions to purchase services and subscriptions throughout the district. We eliminated in the proposed budget funding for middle school athletics, eliminated book purchasing for the media centers, and a reduction to curriculum work expenses, and a reduction in new curriculum expenses. Continuing on the budget cut line item listing, we're making changes to some of the early childhood programming throughout the district. We reduced the number of paraprofessionals throughout the district. We made a reduction in capital outlay. And we also made a reduction of 7% in teacher staffing costs, with specifics pending discussion with the Portage Education Association to help us balance the budget. I'd like to now turn it over to Brad Galen, the HR director, and he will go more in depth in regards to those staffing related cuts.
Thank you, Paula. Good evening, trustees. As Paula indicated, we had to make some significant and very difficult decisions as we were assembling this budget. And we certainly all are hoping that these cuts do not have to come to bear, and that we'll be able to welcome these folks back as we move forward. But in the current budget as incorporated in, the following staffing cuts are included. There are 36 teachers that are currently on our preliminary layoff list. Again, as Paula pointed out, we are in ongoing discussions with the Portage Education Association about possible moves that we can make to alleviate these cuts and still achieve the budget savings that we're looking for. I will characterize these discussions as ongoing and positive, and we will continue moving forward with them as we get into the month of July. Our next one was a 50% reduction in our paraprofessional staffing levels. So we do employ a lot of paraprofessionals here in Portage. So our letters of assurance, which go out at the end of each school year to our school year staff saying they have a position, we had about 50% that did not get that, or about 60 paraprofessionals that did not receive a letter of assurance for continued employment for the 2020-2021 school year. On the admin support side, we have a layoff and furlough of 4 of our administrative support staff. And then we're on hold and filling another currently open position, kind of dragging our feet on that one, waiting to get more information on the budget as we move forward. Those specific people were notified today, so they are aware of what is happening, including one of my own HR staff. And then in our custodial maintenance group, we know we have a retirement coming up in short order, so we do not intend to fill that position once the person retires. And we had on hold another position that had been posted. We've pulled that posting and we are holding on that as well. So that is the specific staffing reductions that we are looking at as part of the preliminary 2020-2021 budget.
Thank you, Brad. So just to show the board and anyone else that is viewing the proposed revenues and expenditures related to 2021 based on that cut in funding, obviously subject to change. Obviously, we're hoping for a better turnout than what this budget was built on. With the expenditures exceeding revenues, at $481,000, it would reduce the fund balance percentage lower than the final amendment from 1920. It would lower it to 2.72%. I would I would propose and hope that this is a worst case scenario representation of what could happen. Are there any questions?
Paula, Joanne, I'm ready. Okay, and if I'm out of line and you don't have the answer, it's okay, okay? First comment, I thought the retirement expense rate has been increased to 40.61%, and it was 39.43. Is that increase a 2021, 2020, 2021 budget certainty at this point?
The retirement increase has been incorporated into this budget. Is that your question, Joanne? I apologize.
Yeah, let me say it again. What is the retirement expense rate for the 2021 school year? Why do I think it's 40.61?
I am using 40.61. I am blending based on old UAL rate and the new retirement rate because the revenue side of the UAAL has not been updated in our budget. So I did not want to throw the percentage skew through the budget by having too much expenditure and not enough revenue to flatten it out. So the revenue that is used is the same revenue that we received in 1920.
Okay. So in lay ladies language, our retirement expense is 40 cents on the dollar paid, correct?
Yes.
40.6 cents dollar paid. Okay, Paula, now I'm going to refer to slide 3, the 2019-2020 general fund budget amendment. So this document is taking us through, it's closing out 1920, and then we're going to start the elephant and take another bite out of the proposed 2020-2021 budget, correct? So if you look at slide 4, and help me that this number is now correct, you're estimating that the state of Michigan is going to come back on us for up to be between $7 and $8 million after the fact and take our fund balance down to 2.95% because retroactively they're going to cut $650 per student on our 1920 budget. And that's why our fund balance has dropped from 8.41 to below 3%. Is that a valid statement?
That's a valid statement. When this budget was put together, 3 weeks have gone by and a lot has changed. And like I said, we're just hearing news that a deal was reached that we will not receive a hit for 1920, but we do not have details of that information at this time, that's why I included the slide to the board of what our fund balance could look like if we did not take a cut.
Okay, perfect. So going through 1920, I got it. Now in 2021, and we're on slide, I numbered them. Thank you for getting this to the board. And I'm sure it's not available on our board book right now for the public to see. So slide, I call that 4, and after the revenue decrease, and now we're talking 2020, 2021 budget. So we are now looking at a preliminary per pupil funding of, give me the figure, $650 again.
$7,461. It was built on that same per pupil foundation amount, and we still do not know what our per pupil funding will be for 2021.
And yet, in this era of uncertainty, Brad has gone ahead, you've gone ahead, and we've taken the worst case scenario. In negotiations, layoffs, and we have to have a budget today. Is that a fair statement, Paula?
That's a fair statement. We have to pass a budget by July 1. That's a
Okay.
statement.
Okay, so I'll save the rest of my comments for my board comments that are coming up at some point in time. I want to make sure that I understood what Brad just told me. This is the first I've seen of these numbers. So I'm going to try and repeat them, Brad. If I've made a mistake, speak to me. 60% or 50% of our parapros have been reduced, possibly reduced. 36 teachers, I have a layoff slip. The administration, there's 4 support staffs, and the custodial is an unknown. But negotiations have started with our teachers to take a 7% reduction and open up their contract. Brad, is that a fair statement?
It is. I want to make sure you're clear. The parapros, it's a 50% reduction, which is the 60 individuals affected, not 60%, but 50% of parapros, which is 60 people. The rest of your statement is correct. Yes.
Okay, I didn't think I had that right. So say that to me again so I understand it. 60 parapros
Have not been given letters of reasonable assurance.
thank you. That concludes my question. Thank you, Brad.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from board members?
Yes, I'd like to apologize to Paula and Mark from a taxpayer from the state of Michigan and our lack of leadership in Lansing for not giving you guys the numbers you need to make this a better issue. And I think it's terrible from the governor's office down to all the elected officials that they are not providing us with more guidance when by law we have to have a budget. So I want to apologize to you, the administrative, and all the staff that's affected by this, because I'm just appalled at the lack of leadership in Lansing in doing that to all you people.
Any other questions before I turn it over to Ms.
Yeah. Hey, hello, Paul. It's Rusty here.
Hi, Rusty.
Just a clarification, and I think maybe the public needs to be aware. There's a chance that they're going to not do a proration this year, and we're talking about equal amounts. You know, we're going to lose $650 this year, potentially in revenue. Next year we have to cut $650 in expenses. But that being said, that they're saying there's not going to be a proration this year. There could be very well be double next year. Is that correct? Would that, I mean,
I am not familiar, Rusty, with what our cut could be for 2021 at this
Right.
time. I've only read that they reached a deal regarding 1920.
right. They
We
could
would-
essentially push that all into 2021. No, yes, no?
Well, they could. It's $1 billion. It's the same dollar amount short in 2021 that it was for 1920. And so that would be approximately 650. You've heard $682 on the news. They give a range $650 to $700 a pupil. Without knowing the details of what was reached today, a half an hour before our budget hearing started, I don't feel educated enough to be able to speak on 2021 at this time.
Yep. I just want to warn the public, it could be worse than 650. So, thank you.
Hey, Paula, this is Bo. Can I go next, Randy?
Yes, sir.
I guess the other thing I'd point out, I mean, I want, Paula, you use the word volatile, which is exactly right, because the other side of the coin is it's an election year. And in August, there could be a bipartisan relief bill that makes us whole on some or all of this. So it's going to be really weird. And we're going to have to prepare for upside and downside. I mean, we just need to be prepared for what levels of government that hold the purse strings say. and it will flow down to us, and we need to be nimble. I mean, of course, as an admin team, but also as a board. And, we need to, I think, get frequent information as these major changes happen, as today's, 11th hour budget deal is announced. So, I mean, that's one thing. We all need to kind of keep ourselves centered and flexible. But Paula and Mark, I emailed you my 2 questions this weekend so you'd have a chance to think about them, and I'd like to ask them now. The first question is, if we have a budget that is below 5%, and I've heard over the years that is a line that the state does not like school districts to fall below. Can you say exactly what kind of repercussions there would be with the state if we go below that 5%?
Well, Bo, the state looks at a 3-year average to determine the below 5%. So if we were to hit the below 5% in 1 year, it would be acknowledged by Treasury, but we are in a 3-year average, we would not be below 5%. And then when you fall below, you have to work on a plan to build that back up. And you have to work with Treasury.
Got it. And Mark, that's your understanding as well. Did you want to add anything, or are you good with that? Paula, that's helpful.
No, it is. It's an accurate statement, and I have to believe that the majority of the schools in the state of Michigan are going to find themselves in a similar situation.
Yeah.
If we get the proration, if we don't get the proration, then obviously our endpoint, our ending fund balance in 1920 keeps us up above the 5%. So, then the next year would be the only year that we would be below the 5%. So that it would just move that problem forward. But yes, what Paula said is very accurate.
Right. And so Paula and Mark, I mean, I appreciate that because you just expanded my understanding of that. And I have no doubt, I mean, we approve this and we're going under 5% on purpose, not because we're mismanaging it, because we are managing it and because we could not tolerate the additional impact in the classroom that trying to keep that fund balance higher would have. And so, I mean, I see that 2.72% and I swallow hard. I mean, that is a number we are not accustomed to. And that gets us kind of close to where you just start worrying. It's really low. On the other hand, you start to balance this, and for us to try to build that number up, that would impact more teachers. It would impact staff class sizes. And so, so I am supportive of that 2.72, and I'm appreciative of the fact that it's a 3-year average. And I don't think we're going to end up on the state list, because I think once COVID gets behind us, we will have a plan to responsibly kind of build that back up and get back above 5. So, okay, so thank you. That's my first point. My second point then, Paula, is I know that 2.72 is calculated as of kind of the end of the budgeting period. And during the school year, there are ebbs and flows in cash flow. And so my question is, if we budget at 2.72, will we need a line of credit? Because there will be a couple times during the year where the state flow of money does not match our use of it. And I do know other school districts do that, but I don't think we have in the past. I might be wrong on that, but could you just address that point?
I sure can, Bo. At my prior district, we did have to borrow. And when I became business manager, I helped get it out of that borrowing mode. It's very hard to do. And so I'm familiar with the process and how that happens. And if we were going to end up taking this proration cut, I was going to submit cash flow for analysis so that all of that could be calculated so that we could be ready to go for when we would need that line of credit. That was going to be my next step to go, but I wanted to wait to find out, are we really going to take this cut? I didn't want to put the cart before the horse, but yep. I'm aware of how to go about making that happen for the district, hoping in the back of my mind that we wouldn't have to do it, but we at that low of a percentage, I would almost be positive that we would have to if we really ended the year like this.
Okay, thank you. Good to know that's your next step. Appreciate it. Randy,
Can
that's
I,
all.
can I engage you with a conversation with Bo? Because if there's ever a policy person that has lived and died by the 7% policy, let's look at it from this way. If we proclaim that our closing budget for the 1920 school year is below 3%, and our 2021 is below 3%, and then we come along at 8% back up, you got a 3-year average. So we could be 3, 3, and 8. We could be 14. We could be. I picked out. I took 19 over 3 years. Now, how did I come up with it? Come on, Paula. I think I came up with 3, 3 is 6, and then I came up with 9, and that's a 3-year fund balance of 5%. So once we take this hit and it's based upon a 3-year average, Paula, that's going to haunt us.
Well, Joanne, one thing to also keep in mind is it's going to be the end of the year percentage. They're not going to look at our amendment percentages. They're going to look at our end of year. So, well, they're going to look at last fiscal year, the year before fiscal year, the year ending. Our amendments are just an estimation. Remember, I covered that at a prior meeting when we talked about reporting aspects. Amendments are an estimate. Actuals come in at the end of the year.
Okay, but it's the 1920 end of the year fiscal statement, and you're taking the 650 hit out of that budget and proclaiming it now.
Right, but keep in mind, that's just the budget. How are the numbers actually going to fall? My revenues, if we don't take the 650 cut, my revenues should be substantially higher than what I am presenting to the board in my resolution. So that number is going to go back up because the revenues are going to be substantially higher than what's presented to the board tonight in the resolution if we don't take the 650 cut in 1920.
If we don't take the 650 cut in 1920. The unknown. Thank you. And federal funding in 6 p.m. today. Thank you, Paula.
Are there any other questions for Paula or Brad?
Randy, you can let me know if this is an appropriate time to ask, but I might be getting into the weeds here, but I have a question regarding professional development and technology. Just a curiosity, a couple of questions, but if this is not the time for that, I can wait. It's not
No, go ahead, please.
Okay. I know that we've made a commitment, or I'm not sure if we've made a commitment, but we have been working with Great Lakes Equity Center and Fetzer Institute. My question is, are the professional development costs associated with the numbers that you presented here?
I can take that.
Okay.
Paul. There is no cost to us with our work with the Great Lakes Equity Center, and the same so far with Fetzer Institute.
That's good. Okay. And my other one was a technology question, and this might be a Dan. When we were right in the midst of the COVID, and we were trying to make sure that we were being able to meet the needs of each and every student remotely, do we anticipate some additional costs just in case we have students who choose to do their educational, at least start out remotely? Are there any costs concerning that?
I think the biggest unknown would be whether or not we would be looking to provide additional internet access for our students.
Okay.
And I believe we're going to be including some of those questions in an upcoming survey.
Okay. I was just curious if we were able to at least try to level the playing field for all of those students who may not have immediate access.
Yeah, we did distribute over 1,600 Chromebooks to our elementary students as per family requests during the COVID shutdown.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from trustees?
Randy, just one, it's Rusty here, sorry.
Yes, sir.
One comment, I'm just curious. We're doing all this conversation tonight and we're moving forward with budgets and amendments in everything. The whole world could change tomorrow regarding our funding. How soon after tonight would we be discussing amendments? So as a board, we have clarity on what next year is going to look like budget wise, because I'm sure whatever we approve tonight is going to change if things are going to change in the legislature. Does anybody have an opinion on that when we want amendment?
Are you asking that of administration, Rusty?
I guess, Mark, you would be the best one to ask. Because, when this happens, we're looking at this thing. The community is concerned. The stakeholders are concerned. And right now we're approving a budget that's, says a lot of people are going to get laid off. And I would just like to relieve those concerns or sooner rather than later. And I have my own concerns on some of the line items things, and I just think we need to be communicating about that continuously, so everybody's on the same page.
Well, I would just say that if we turn out to not get prorated to the degree that we had budgeted for, we would not wait for a budget amendment from the board to start reinstating some of those areas that we made reductions on. So to tell you exactly when we would bring an amendment back, I don't think we would want to go through. It's a lot of work to put together the financials for an amendment. So we would want to make sure at least we waited until some of the unknowns became a little more factual. Probably not before the next consensus revenue estimating conference, but I could see an amendment coming in the early fall. But that wouldn't mean that all of these reductions would have to be held until the next budget amendment. So once we get a clearer picture of our revenues, we will adjust and prioritize what we've been saying that needs to be reduced, if that helps at all.
Well, I guess what I'm thinking is some type of communication process for the community, budget amendment light, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be a budget amendment. But, as board members, we hear rumors, the community hears rumors, and, staff hears rumors. And I just want a process where we can relieve anxiety if it's not needed. So I don't know what process it is. I'd like the board to be a little bit more informed with some type of mechanism, because we got some great PowerPoints and everything, but we're kind of left in the dark a lot of the times, until just before the meeting. So I just like to be very open to the community. I'd like a mechanism so people know what we're doing.
Can I add one other quick thing off in regards to Rusty's comment, Mark? One important piece of information that will be very beneficial to amend the budget is knowing what our fall count number is. Even though we know what our allowance is going to come in at, to really dial in that revenue to get it accurate, knowing what our count is going to be very helpful. So I just want to remind the board of that.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on your comment, I know there's some legislation that's been introduced about using the 1920 count for the 2021 count, which would help alleviate some of that angst that we're feeling around student enrollment. So we're still waiting on that. That would be very helpful to get information from the state as well as to what they're planning on using for our enrollment numbers if it's not our fall count. But your point is well made, Rusty. I think we do want to reduce anxiety where we can. We don't want to raise anxiety levels any more than we already have. People are not. Nobody's liking this. We don't want to be in this situation, and we realize that it raises a lot of anxiety, not just the budget side, but our whole planning for returning to school in the fall. So communication is a key issue for us. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Hey, Randy, this is Bo. I'm just
Yes, sir.
I'm just trying to process the conversation here and take Rusty and Mark's comments and just try to balance this. I mean, if I were king and there were 3 or 4 Paulas, I would almost want us to adopt a new budget every month until we kind of get into the fall. But we don't have, a half a dozen Paulas. And so I don't know what the right answer is, but I think we have to find some kind of happy medium where once a month we are getting a substantive report of kind of where things, of what more we've learned, of what more the certainty is, and how that's impacted. Staffing and the fund balance situation. I mean, those are the 2 big things in my mind. So I don't know what the answer is, but I wanted to acknowledge, Mark, I do appreciate the amount of effort in approving a new budget every month. I know that's a stretch just logistically, but if we can strike some kind of medium where we are getting a report on the major things and the kind of the major news, and it sounds like there may have been major news 30 minutes before our meeting started. I mean, just as an example. So anyway, I'll stop there, but I'm still in my mind just trying to, figure out what that happy medium is. Thanks.
Thanks, Bo. Any other comments from trustees?
Randy, I'm holding my comments to where they fit in the agenda.
Okay, well, I just want to close the trustee comments in this section with a few comments on behalf of the board. I certainly want to thank Paula and Brad for their presentations tonight, and Paula for all your work on the numbers, given that you're shorthanded in your area. We appreciate all your efforts there. And we also want to thank Mark and his entire team for putting together recommendations to provide good stewardship for the district as we move forward. Also want to thank our community again for approving the regional enhancement millage back in May for the 6th consecutive 3-year period. As Paula indicated, this millage brings in about $3.2 million for Portage schools, and the budget we see tonight would be a lot worse without that revenue. It was also good to hear that there may be some progress in Lansing. We know there's discussion at the federal and state level about revenue for schools. Our board passed a resolution several weeks ago seeking federal assistance. We sure hope all this happens. I think everybody on the board wishes and hopes that we can add dollars back to our budget and restore some of what we will lose. But unfortunately, tonight, we can't build a budget on hope, and we can't spend money we don't have. And even though we have no budget from the state of Michigan and no guidance about the costs of what schools will need to look like in the fall due to COVID-19, we're still required to, by law, as we've said, to pass our budget by July 1st. I certainly hope this conservative approach to the budget represents good stewardship as we move forward. We recognize a lot of difficult decisions were made here, particularly decisions about people and programs, decisions you wouldn't make in normal times, but these aren't normal times. The budget is just, columns of numbers on a page, but those columns of numbers impact the lives of real people. And I think it goes without saying that everyone on the board is disappointed that employee positions are at risk. We certainly hope that doesn't happen. We certainly hope we get some relief. And again, thank you for all your work and the presentation tonight. We'll now open up the hearing to public comment.
So Randy, this is Michelle Karpinski. We do have a mechanism for people to call in for this part of public comment. And I just wanted to let people know of the process that we will be using. The phone number that people can use to call in is 551-241-6250. They should know that they will be put in a queue when they call in and be on mute. They will be unmuted when it's their turn to talk. And we would just like to remind folks to limit their comments to 3 minutes and to turn down their computer speakers when they're talking on the phone so we don't get feedback. So I think with that, we are ready to go with the first caller.
You know, Michelle, it's Rusty here. I think if people are watching this live, there's going to be a little bit of a delay if somebody's going to call. I'm not sure if people called ahead of time, but there could be a delay because your portion is probably just starting.
Right. I think we have one person in the queue. Dan Vomastic is manning the technical side of this, so he will connect folks and unmute them. So he was just telling me that it looks like we have one person right now, but certainly, yeah, we would want to give a little opportunity for people to call in.
Yes, wireless caller ending in 478. You are live and ready to go if you'd like to address the board.
Thank you very much for calling. Could you please give us your name and address, please?
Yes, sir. My name is Cindy Hunter, and my address is 8979 West F, as in Frank Avenue in Kalamazoo.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Last week, you shared that there would be a 7% cut to teaching staff and a 7% cut to administration costs, and that was reiterated tonight. Given the figures that we received yesterday for the 2021 proposed budget, could you please provide clarification on the following? 7% cut to teaching staff is $371,176. And that's 7%. And you indicated that would be 36 staff. So one of my questions is, how will that, the affected personnel be determined? My second question is regarding the 7% administration reduction. My figures, when I take the 1920 budget and the 2021 budget, it's a difference of $273,000 for $273,408, which is only a reduction of 4.5%. So I'm wondering, where is the other 2.5% of administration cost reduction that was indicated as a total of 7%?
Thank you, Cindy, for your, yes, thank you very much for your questions. We appreciate you calling in, and I'm sure someone will be able to get that answer for you. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Is there another caller, Dan?
Yes, we have Nancy Knott on the line.
Hi, this is actually Sarah Knott. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes. Can we have your address, please?
Absolutely. I am 3681 Fawn Cove Lane, and that's Portage 49024.
Thank you. Go
Thank
ahead,
you.
please.
I appreciate so much you taking my call. I'm cracking up a little bit. I'm still on my family cell phone plan, so clearly my mother's spirit is here with us at this board meeting. I'm the art teacher at Portage Northern High School, and I just want to say first, thank you so much for all of the difficult discussions that you guys have been having and for all the work that's gone into preparing the budget. I know it can be really easy to have sort of a combative feeling between staff and administration during difficult discussions like this. And I just want to let you know that you're seen and appreciated. And I cannot fathom the work that is going into this. So I am so appreciative of that. I am calling with a specific question and then sort of like a general, I guess, reminder. First, I was curious if we could hear a little bit more about the thought process behind the decision to make a reduction in paraprofessionals. And the reason that I ask that is, as a special teacher in my building, I'm already deprioritized for help staff in my classroom. So I essentially only see a parapro when there are any free in my classroom. So I end up with students who are really, fairly high needs. I'm working with things like, blow torches, belt sanders, stuff like that without a paraprofessional, because the paraprofessionals are first and obviously understandably sent to the core classroom subject teachers. So from the teacher side, there already feels like a shortage of paraprofessionals, and I'm curious where the sort of the perception of us having a great deal of paraprofessionals is coming from, and I was hoping that that could be discussed a little bit. And then I also wanted to remind everyone that each reduction of a staff member represents usually an increase in class sizes for the rest of us, and for teachers, the size of our classes has been going only up for the past several years. So I'm over 30 in most of my classes now, and most of our classrooms are set up to hold 30 maximum. So just sort of a reminder that when you're looking at the line item of staffing reduction specifically, each staffing reduction represents not only the loss of that person's salary, but also an increase on already very, very overcrowded classrooms. Thank you so much. Again, I really appreciate the opportunity to comment and all the hard work that's been done on your end.
Very good, Sarah. Thank you for your call.
Years, so I'm over 30.
Caller ending in 789, you are on the line.
Maximum. So, hello?
Yes,
Hello,
go
could
ahead.
you please give us your name and address?
Hi, my name is Laura Huff. My address is 7581 Capri, Portage, Michigan, 49002. I am a teacher also at Portage Central High School, and I also have 3 children in the Portage Public Schools. One just moved on to 6th grade. But I did have this last marking period, or last semester, was an elementary, middle, and in high school. I've been teaching for Portage Public Schools for 20 years. And one of my big concerns and again, I want to thank everyone as well, because I know this is hard to do, and there's a lot of hard work going into everything that's done. I don't want to be in a lot of these positions that you have to be in, but I do want to talk about my concern about having the return to learn information relayed to teachers the second week of August. One of these biggest concerns I have is it takes a lot of time to prepare. I would like to see basically, if it takes 7 weeks for them to decide how we're going to help to retrofit our curriculum to an online program that's not like the program we had in the spring, which was very off-putting to a lot of people. We need to have an ample amount of time to prepare our lessons so that they meet all the students' needs. And what would be happening is, if it's the second week of August, the way I perceive it is we have to return, I believe it's the 3rd week of August. So we would have about 7 days within which to try to create curriculum that matches the platform. So my question, or I guess concern, would be is there any way we can move that specific team up so that teachers have more time to prepare in a meaningful way, powerful lessons for our community? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Laura.
We have no other callers in the queue at this time.
Very good, Dan. Thank you. Our budget hearing is closed, and we'll move on to comments and communications for our regular meeting.
Okay, so we do have about 20 comments that were submitted in writing by the 5:30 time on a number of topics. I will read them in the order that they were submitted. All right, the first is from Susan Callaward. She is a 5th grade teacher at Haverhill. Her address is 14863 South 33rd Street. She writes, here are my questions. Thank you for addressing these to the PPS board. First question, in this new budget, how many educators will be laid off? Considering the PPS policy manual last revised August 15th, 2016, for the code PO 3131, section 3000, professional staff, title staff reductions/recalls. Second question, can you be more specific beyond the code mentioned above about how the teaching positions being laid off will be determined? Third question, how will these layoffs impact class sizes in elementary classes and in secondary classes? Thank you. The next comment comes from Kat Frank, 8135 Southwest Midge Avenue. She writes, Dear Board of Education members and PPS leadership team. As some of you may know, I'm the advisor for the Portage Central Sewing Studio, an after-school club for anyone who wants to learn to sew. I want to let you know about an important project that I've been able to lead for the past 2 months. My friend Nancy Gallahue, an audiologist for KRESA, knew that I had sewn masks for all of our PPS food service workers and learning packet delivery volunteers. She outlined the need for reusable window masks, which are cloth masks with a clear vinyl panel in front to allow deaf and hard of hearing students in our community to observe visual cues and lip read. With 120 DHH students in KRESA and each student having between 3 and 8 educators, the need is large. So many of those students are Portage Public School kids, making this project especially near and dear to the hearts of our teachers. The response from our community has been incredible. With KRESA supplying materials and our in-kind business sponsor, Redline Custom Design, laser cutting the material, we were able to distribute kits to crafters all over this part of the state. As of today, I'm proud to say that we were able to meet our goal of 1,000 masks. I'm so thankful to all of the community members from Portage, Kalamazoo, and even as far away as Grand Rapids who volunteered for this unique project. I hope the board will join me in thanking these amazing people who gave their time and talents for our students. Sincerely, Kat. The next one comes from Cheryl Bradford. She's a Central High English teacher. She lives at 7810 West XY Avenue in Schoolcraft, 49087. Superintendent Beeling and Board of Education members, I'm writing you specifically about our district's Return to Learn plan. No matter what form it takes, I urge you to keep the health and safety of students and staff at the forefront of your decision making. None of what we do with curriculum, with assessment, whether in person, remotely, or some combination of the two, will matter if our plan does not account for multiple scenarios, contingencies, and emergencies that undoubtedly will arise this fall. Please consider our students who live with family who are susceptible to illness. Please think about our teachers and staff who may be equally susceptible, and how we can protect them and their family members. Lastly, please remember that our efforts to be an exceptional, continuously improving learning culture with high expectations for all will all be for naught if we cannot protect the physical and social emotional welfare of everyone in our school community. Our next comment comes from Janet Lavasser, 3255 North 38th Street in Augusta. She's a Central High School teacher as well. Dear Board of Education, I'm writing to share my thoughts and ideas regarding the current school budget and race challenge. I prefer challenge to the word crisis because the first word creates opportunities and the second word creates panic. We have two big problems, racism and the budget. I care deeply about both issues. We were invited to discuss discrimination/race in our buildings. At CHS, the majority of participants were white women. Can people who have never experienced systematic racism solve the problem of racism? That question is being answered on a daily basis in the news. No. We have been talking about racism in the Portage Public Schools since I arrived in 1988. We had the Huck Finn crisis in the early 1990s, and we still have barely changed the curriculum or our hiring practices. Why am I talking about race and the budget in the same letter? They go together. When a decision to cut middle school athletics occurs, it will hurt students of color disproportionately. This inequity has a solution. Budgeting requires big vision. Cuts to middle school athletics do not align with the new vision statement of our district. What is a 7% reduction? We do not know what it'll look like in our classroom or our buildings. Here are some of the things I think about. An enrollment reduction on top of a budget cut would be devastating. Families choose Portage for the opportunities. Yes, the academics, but also the sports, the musical, forensics programs, garden club, etc. As a teacher of ninth graders, each year some previously homeschooled students join my class. They choose Portage for the extras. Please don't cut the extras. It could easily endanger our enrollment numbers. High academic standards appear to be our standard byline. I am all in for high academic standards, but let me be the one to tell you that every single student in my classes wishes that he or she could take more electives. When we went to a 7-hour school day out of fear, we raised the graduation requirements handily. We took the fun out of school by making the standards so high that students can rarely take electives. Every single time students begin the scheduling process, I suggest fun classes to them, and they say the same thing. I would love to, but I can't fit it in my schedule. This can be fixed. If you want to increase the social emotional well-being of our students, make graduation requirements more flexible to allow room in student schedules for electives. Together, we can figure this out. Janet Levassin. Our next comment comes from Dan Wyko. He lives at 3371 Hampstead Court in Portage. He writes, regarding the consideration of cutting middle school athletics, our students need positive outlets to keep them motivated throughout the school year. Extracurricular activities are a very important component to a student's well-being and ability to grow as a person. We know that the times are challenging in many facets for students, staff, and our community. We need positive solutions that can help maintain these programs that are beneficial to our students. What positive solutions can our district utilize to solve these problems, such as increasing the pay to participate fees? Thank you for your time and consideration. Our next comment comes from Jeremy Storteboom. He's at 7325 Dunross Drive in Portage. He's a 4th grade teacher. Superintendent Bueling and Portage Public School Board members, as you consider the budgets for the upcoming school years, I hear a lot of talk of doing what is best for the students. This is an admirable focus in these discussions and the essence of why we are all involved in the profession. I would like to offer a perspective related to students, teachers, families, and the budget. Many of us are PPS employees as well as parents of current or future PPS students. When you are talking about cutting staff and/or salaries, please keep in mind that you are directly impacting a great number of students as well. As parents and staff members, we are reliant on our salaries to provide for the at-home needs of our students. When the parents are affected, the students are affected. By laying off, cutting salaries, increasing workloads, etc., there is more stress on the entire family of these students. Please do your best to do what is right for all of us. You have led well in the past. Please keep it up in the near and distant future. Thank you for your time. Our next comment comes from Sarah Baker. If you don't mind, I'm going to take a sip of water here real quick. Thank you. Okay. Dear PPS Board of Education Administration, I would like to give recognition to Portage Central Girls Basketball Program and Mustang Athletics for their engagement with my student athlete. Specifically, freshman coach Jason Jarrett and varsity coach Rob Brown have instructed for athletic and academic excellence as well as a commitment to the team. Though the season was cut short due to COVID, the coaches and booster parents continued to connect with my child. I appreciate the email and text messages sent to recognize other athletes, check in on her, and the encouragement to attend summer conditioning. I am also requesting a community-wide update on district action to improve diversity and inclusion curriculum and sensitivity training. I believe the work led and modeled by the school system will profoundly impact our community. Regards, Sarah Baker at 5669 Stony Brook Road in Kalamazoo, 49009. Our next comment comes from Vicki Hassan. She's a Young Fives teacher at Woodland Elementary at 5675 Tradewood Drive in Portage. She says, administrators and board members, we all understand that the pandemic has put our state and the entire country in a place we've never been before. I appreciate the hard work you are doing to try to prepare a budget in the face of so much uncertainty. However, based on the email we received from Superintendent Bueling last Monday and the board meeting of June 22nd, I have several questions and comments. To begin with, I feel it is important that PPS employees and our community should be giving greater specifics about each item that is being proposed to balance the budget. What does each item entail? For example, what compensation adjustments and assignment changes will occur at the administrative level? Stating that there are changes to some early childhood programs did not adequately inform us that the GSRP program was being cut from the PPS program. What will each item save the district if implemented? Secondly, I'm wondering how our administration is considering addressing the CDC guidelines regarding smaller class sizes should we return to school in the fall. Given the proposal to cut 40 teaching positions, it will become even more difficult to reduce the number of students in a classroom at a time when we should be reducing, not increasing class sizes. Lastly, I'm wondering if administration has considered asking teachers for additional suggestions to cut expenses. I understand you need to look at the big picture, but in doing so, you may be missing ideas from those of us in the trenches who see the small picture each day and may have ideas you hadn't considered. Thank you for your continued work to create a budget that supports a successful 2020-21 school year. Our next comment comes from Kent Baker. He writes, Dear PPS Board of Education and Administration, my name is Kent Baker and I reside in the district at 5769 Stony Brook Road. I'm also a teacher at Portage Central High School, and it is in this capacity that I'm writing this note. I would like to recognize one of my colleagues, Sarah Brown, for going above and beyond in her efforts. Sarah is the media specialist at CHS and is an invaluable asset to our students and our staff. She is a tireless worker and is one of the most positive and upbeat people that I know. She does an excellent job curating the Media Center's books and resources, but Sarah's efforts do not stop there. She's constantly challenging herself to be a resource for both students and the staff. Sarah has developed programs to help students develop the skills to identify bias and then to limit its negative impact, skills that continue to prove vital in the world that we live in. Throughout the shift to online learning this spring, she developed a means to support our IB students in their extended essay research while they were at home. Her efforts to work with our students remotely helped to maintain their momentum in this challenging time. Sarah works every day to engage our students to enrich not just their education, but their lives. The programs that she runs through our Media Center to recognize and foster not just a love of reading, but a genuine passion for lifelong learning continue to pay real dividends for our young people. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to thank one of our talented and dedicated educators. Best regards, Kent Baker. Our next comment comes from Cindy Hunter. She's the director of choirs at Portage Central High and Middle School. Dear valued Board of Education trustees and administration for Portage Public Schools, thank you for this opportunity to address you tonight with my comments. My name is Cindy Hunter. I live at 8979 West F Avenue in Kalamazoo. I have taught choir at Central Middle School and at Portage High School since 1998 and elementary music at Amberley and Moore's Bridge for 1 year prior. Music communicates emotion, and for many students, the arts allow them to best experience the breadth of humanity, to connect their feelings to the feelings of others, and to be empathetic. Following the lengthy quarantine period, much emphasis is being placed on social emotional learning, and music and performing arts in general are the perfect vehicle to teach SEL skills. Through the study of elementary music, choir, band, and orchestra and theater, students learn to identify and manage emotions, feel and show empathy for others, discover relationships, make connections to other cultures, and make collective decisions. Students develop listening skills, team skills, and discipline to practice. As music teachers, we teach all three learning domains, cognitive, affective, and kinesthetic, every day, whether in person or virtually. Studies have shown that students who participate in a music class consistently have higher grades in other subjects, regardless of gender, ethnicity, and socioeconomic status or family income. Music teachers are constantly differentiating instruction throughout the rehearsal process, quickly reacting to what we hear, and helping students to find solutions. We teach critical thinking skills every single day. When we switched to distance learning, PPS music teachers quickly collaborated to create lessons that allowed our students to continue the study of music while unable to rehearse together due to the limitations of technology. Distance learning allowed students the opportunity to explore other national standards, including creating, responding, and connecting in addition to performing. Students were able to express themselves and receive feedbacks in ways we could not experience during in-person learning. When soliciting feedback from students in my week 7 assignment, many students responded how much they missed creating and performing artistically on a daily basis with their peers, but how they looked forward to their weekly choir assignment as well. During a time when many were feeling isolated and alone, the wide variety of distance learning choir tasks and activities allowed them to feel something and to connect with their human side. I trust the Board of Education administration realize the value of music is not only in live performance. Music can be experienced in multiple other ways, as a listener, a researcher, a reviewer, an improviser, a historian, a composer, a soloist, etc. Please continue to allow PPS music staff to enrich the lives of PPS students by creatively using all resources at our disposal, regardless of what teaching may look like in the fall. Our students need the arts. I dare say for some students, they need the arts in order to survive. Our next comment comes from Matthew Caramango. He lives at 2501 Portside Avenue and is also from Lucy Laird and Jenny Taffy at 2681 Eagle Harbor Drive. Collectively, they write, 10 months and 10 days ago, the board approved the hiring of 33 new teachers. At the top of the list was Rachel Bell, a new 4th grade teacher at Amber Elementary. As her team members, we wanted to thank you for that excellent decision. Rachel has been a fantastic addition to our staff. She's a talented teacher who connects easily with her students, and she fits into the Amberley community like she's been here for years. Rachel has been particularly helpful when it comes to using data to plan instruction. Her experience and knowledge of the NWEA assessment has been invaluable in making our intervention times more effective than ever before. When we began remote learning, Rachel continued to grow as part of our team. She has worked as part of the Amberley leadership team and the Return to Learning Committee, helping to tackle some of the toughest issues facing us as we move forward. We feel truly lucky to have her. We have another one from Amanda Goings, who is a 1st grade teacher at Amberley Elementary. She writes, Dear Portage Public School Board of Education, what does the Portage Public School need to succeed? What can I get you? What are the resources you lack? These are the questions that good leaders ask their team. As leaders, it is your responsibility to make sure our school district organizations and teammates are taken care of, whatever that takes. Please take a minute to embrace the mindset you get to as opposed to have to, as the change of perspective ought to ignite happiness and success. As a team, we have the mutual responsibility to one another in order to achieve success. Our team leaders can help. As our team leaders, you can help us acquire the resources we need while the team maximize them for the benefit of the families and students we serve and the fulfillment of the district mission. It is clear that PPS vision is committed to growth. Ron Kitchens, senior partner of Southwest Michigan First, is quoted with the following 7 team attributes that might hold one back. Number 1, focus on the past. Past results do not indicate future performance. 2, self-centered. One needs to focus on people, not just profits. 3, quarrelsome. Teams ought to have peace and unity. 4, good is the enemy of great. A good enough mindset will not lead to great growth. 5, average. By being average, you will never be able to attract top talent to propel your mission to the next level. 6, fickle. Wholeheartedly pursue your beliefs. 7, barriers. Fling open your doors and let others in. We are living in a collaborative culture. Therefore, I would like you to consider what is slowing you down and strongly consider the benefits that elementary job shares would have on the students and the district during this financial crisis. Consequently, employ the district administration team to create and support co-teaching opportunities. Here are just a few of the ways a co-teaching position would benefit students as well as the school district. Fresh energy from teachers, 2 professionals tending to students' individual needs, happier staff reduces burnout, cost savings reduction in insurance benefits, etc. No subs needed, line item savings, enhances accountability, mentors opportunities, and reduction in layoffs. It is my goal to be part of a world-class team, and I'm asking that you give us what we need to succeed so that we are all in a position to win. All the best. Our next one comes from Carolyn Moore, 1141 Meadows Suite Lane, Vicksburg. Good evening, PPS Board of Education. First of all, I want to thank the administration team for the many hours of work they put in this spring to try and make our emergency situation during the stay-at-home order an educational experience for all. Now in planning for the fall, I was glad to see that during last week's meeting that most of the teams will have representation from all stakeholders. I think that the voices of all those involved in what will certainly be a very different way of learning should be heard. My concerns about the 2021 school year come partly as a result of reading through the recently released Michigan Republican Legislature's Return to Learn proposal. As a parent of a PPS elementary student, as well as a teacher in the district, I want to express both parental and staff concerns about returning to the classroom. Today, my apprehension comes as a parent, as the report stated that K-5 students should be required to return to in-person instruction. Of course, I agree that this is the best scenario for our students, but I want to emphasize how incredibly important it will be to ensure the safety of our students and staff. How will we ensure safety on the buses, in the classrooms, on the playground? And then my big question as a staff member will the district be providing PPE for all of its employees? There's a lot of apprehension about being back in the classroom with COVID-19 case numbers on the rise in Michigan. Finally, and most important to me as a teacher, since you're proposing to cut PD funding, I would like to know what the plan is for giving teachers time to prepare in departments for this upcoming school year. Time will be an extremely important factor for the efficacy of all possible learning plans. Thank you. Our next comment comes from Teresa Mills. She is IB and Honors English teacher at Portage Central High School. Dear Superintendent Beelang and members of the school board, first and foremost, let me say thank you to all the educators who weathered the fourth quarter under adverse and awkward conditions. Kudos to us, we are heroes. We went above and beyond in delivering a meaningful curriculum to our students on a medium in which we had no training. We worked out the kinks and pressed on. We made the most of a clumsy delivery system because we care, because we want what is best for kids, because we are the rule followers and the rules change. So we did our best to learn the new rules and help our students learn and grow. That's dedication. What happened over the last 7 weeks would never have been successful if it hadn't been for the dedication of our teachers. So kudos to all the teachers. We rock. And you know why we rock? Because we care. We care about the health and well-being of our students and our colleagues. But here's the question. As we look to engage in learning in the fall, who cares about us? How is the administration going to take care of us when we return to in-person instruction? What measures are being taken to ensure that our classrooms are clean and disinfected, that our students are able to social distance, that there is hand sanitizer available in the hallways and in the classrooms? Please make sure that all peoples are being thought about and cared for as we prepare for the new normal. Show teachers we are cared about. Ensure us that you will do everything possible to keep us safe and free of COVID. We, teachers, are your most valuable asset. We are in the trenches every day imparting knowledge to young, impressionable minds. We are the ones expressing care and concern, fixing the problem with a soothing word and a loving hug. We trudge forward regardless of the circumstances, always doing our best because we care. Now is the time to praise, honor teachers, and keep them safe. Our next comment comes from Amber Dixon at 1437 Red Stock Avenue in Portage. I'm gonna grab another drink of water here real quick. Thank you. As a teacher and parent in the district, I want to thank our board for their hard work in helping our students. I want to thank Joanne Wilson and Rusty Rathburn for speaking about last week's board meeting about the effects of the budget cuts on our students. That is what we need. I understand the fiscal dilemma every district is in, but students need to be number one right now. cutting parapros, library purchasing, 7% from teachers. These items and more directly impact the daily lives of our students, just as COVID will next school year. We offer an amazing education in Portage, and we need those items suggested to be cut. And they are not extra. Parapros, new curriculum, loss of all middle school sports, and some activities are not extra. The loss of dozens of teachers directly affects my son, a class of 2021 Husky, and my own students. The library's new books make it one of our students' favorite places in the school. Two of his favorite teachers were pink slipped. What other opportunities will he miss next year with budget cuts and COVID? The proposal is unclear exactly what the 7% of staff means. These teachers are my colleagues and my collaborators. I work with one of the teachers who was pink slipped to plan our successful senior sunset parade and continue to work with him for our graduation plans. I worked with a second pink slip teacher multiple times a week this spring, planning learning at home lessons to help our students stay connected, and it was amazing work. This is what we need from you, amazing work. Look at everything you can to find where you can make cuts that will not affect the classroom of my son and his classmates. Advocate at all levels of government to increase funding to all districts. Be amazing for the staff and the 8,000 plus students in our district. Thank you. The next comment comes from Michelle O'Neill. She says, my name is Michelle O'Neill and I live at 6770 Veronica Street in Kalamazoo. I have two students who will be attending Portage Central High School in the fall. In recent communication from Superintendent Beeling, I was informed that Return to Learn team participants will remain anonymous, as will the process by which the participants were chosen. This erodes trust and degrades confidence in any decisions that the teams make. It creates the appearance of impropriety. The choice to allow team members to remain anonymous is inconsistent with a representative system. It is very disappointing that there was not a general call for participation. I would ask the board and the superintendent to be more transparent. Please publish team members' information and also the process by which these teams were formed on the PPS website. Sincerely. I think we're down to 3 more. So the next one comes from Lisa Jepson. And she writes, to the PPS Board of Education. I'm a high school counselor who works closely with the staff, students, and parents at Portage Central High School. During the COVID recess, our district counseling team was able to not only meet with parents and students via Google Meet, but also distribute important social emotional learning packets. This remote process worked very well to address the concerns students, staff, and families had during our time away from our school buildings. Although there were several anxieties and concerns to address, I feel PCHS and Portage Public Schools serve the community tremendously well. I have only the highest praise for PCHS staff and administration for navigating this difficult time ending the 2019-2020 school year. I feel the entire staff was professional, supportive, and engaging. The families were caring and involved as well. I look forward to the same level of service for the 2020-2021 school year. It means a great deal to me to return safely while maintaining high standards. I am volunteering for the Return to Learn teams because I know it's important to plan ahead. As someone who works on scheduling students, I'm concerned about the large class sizes we have, and I want to be part of the solution this fall. Finally, I am proud to be a Portage Public Schools employee for a district with only the highest standards. I'm hopeful we can maintain that same level of staffing and smaller class sizes to ensure the quality education we strive to provide for the Portage community. Respectfully. Our next one comes from Anne Marie Bates, who lives at 1232 Carriage Place in Portage. Dear board members, thank you for your work and service. Our administrators and teachers have done an amazing job in navigating these times and providing our students with support and instruction. I know difficult decisions have to be made. I also realize that people will be left upset with any decision that is made. I'm writing to advocate to keep middle school sports. If we take away middle school sports from our students, we will widen an already large gap in athletics for students that cannot afford to pay in club/travel sports situation. I have coached I've coached in a role at Portage Northern High School while also coaching for an area sports club. I see the gap growing. This becomes a real issue if a coach at the high school level does not have the experience to recognize athletic ability. A student's athletic ability can easily go unnoticed due to low experience with a specific sport. Sports are a way to keep our students engaged. Taking these opportunities away at the middle school level will be an equity issue for our families. We will increase an already large equity gap for many of our families that cannot afford to play outside of our school structure. Middle school sports is the beginning of an opportunity for many of our students that creates a passion and work ethic. Sports can create the path of a student's life, and just as our gifted and talented programs do. Thank you. And we are down to our last comment for this evening. I will go ahead and read it.
Michelle, you might have accidentally muted yourself there.
Oh, I'm sorry. So where did you last hear me?
You were just starting the last comment there.
Okay, I'll go ahead and start from the beginning. I apologize. I must have bumped my computer. My name is Danelle Sturdy. I teach science at West and North Middle School. I would like to address some of my concerns with the proposed 2020-21 budget cuts. While cutting the budget is necessary, and I am deeply concerned that the savings associated with each proposed cut does not offset the huge long-term costs these cuts will have on students and staff in the Portage Public Schools. Although I'd like to address each line item specifically, time does not allow me to. So I will limit my comments to two areas specifically: the elimination of funding for middle school athletics and the reduction in paraprofessionals. To the proposed elimination of funding for middle school athletics. Studies show that the middle school grades are a critical period for identity formation and central to students' later academic path. Middle school, however, is a place where many students feel like they don't fit in or belong, and where academic rigors can set them on a downward trajectory. Athletics can help change this trajectory. When a young person finds an activity they're good at, they learn that trying and working hard pays off, not just on the field or on the court, but in the classroom too. Participation in sports can help students improve grades, attitudes, and behavior. Participation in middle school sports also provides a safe environment to develop new athletic competencies, be part of a team, and to experience the sense of accomplishing something larger than themselves. To the proposed reduction in paraprofessionals. When we think of the people who help educate our children, we typically think of teachers, but there's another presence in the classroom whose job is essential, the paraprofessional. Paraprofessionals bring immeasurable value to the classroom. They assist students with physical needs like feeding, cleaning, or movement for those who can't do it themselves. They provide support to students who need additional instruction to meet with success. They help teachers save valuable class time by working with individual students that might otherwise fall behind their peers in the classroom. Paraprofessionals help deal with behavior problems so teachers can continue the important task of teaching. They are unsung heroes in the classroom and a vital member of a student's network of support. Teachers can only be spread so thin, and we will likely spread even thinner this fall as we figure out what school under COVID guidelines look like. But our student needs won't disappear just because there is a lack of money. We have to find a way to reduce our budget without losing essential personnel in the process. Students need and deserve the support of our paraprofessionals. Respectfully, Danelle Sturdy. And that includes our public comments.
Thank you very much, Michelle. Good reading. Nice job. Thank you. We'll move on to the comments from trustees, and I believe Trustee Wilson had a comment. Trustee Wilson?
Articulate, passionate, professional, respectful comments. My social emotional needs are pretty high right now, and I've prepared some comments. The PowerPoint was given to the board at 3:30. The numbers given by Brad Galen are the first ones I've seen. I was here in the 2012, as were you, as was Rusty and Bo, when we had the 400 and some odd setback in our finances. So this is an entirely different time and an entire different process. So let me go ahead and make my plea of what I typed up last night, which is always subject to change. I serve as an elected official on the PPS Board of Education, serving all people, students, parents, employees, taxpayers, and residents of our school district, in transparency with decisions supported by data and cost-driven information. At the board's public meeting of 6/22, a 10-item PowerPoint presentation was given by Paula Johnson, our financial officer. This PowerPoint, I believed, was the basis of the 2020-2021 budget approval process tonight. I expressed concerns about cuts to education in the classroom. I asked for a per item total cost savings of the 10 items. I received no response to my request for costs. On 6/24, I emailed and I again requested my board president and the board's policy committee for detailed accounting for dollars saved in each item and a comparison spent in the 2019-2020 budget line items. The response was the administration is planning for the worst case and hoping for the best, but we are required to pass a budget. Although our policy is a 7% fund balance, our end statement prioritizes academics. Bottom line, no line item cost or savings cut with a comparison from the 2019-2020 budget versus the 2020 budget that's presented today. Here are the 10 items from the 6/22/20 budget. A 7% reduction in administrative costs through compensation reductions and assignment changes, including a freeze on steps where applicable and a reduction in other benefits. I am again asking, what was the 2019-2020 budget dollars and what will be the budget dollars proposed to be? We're at number 2, we're asking for a 7% reduction in teaching staff costs, and the specifics of how to accomplish this will be worked out in partnership with the PEA, our teachers. I'm asking what was the 2019-2020 budget dollars and what will the 2020-21 budget dollars proposed to be and what's the cost? Reduction in services and subscriptions, give me a dollar figure. Elimination of funding for middle school athletics. Same question, but why just middle school athletics? This could be a shared reduction of expense across all school athletic programs. This would allow approximately 2,073 middle school students an athletic sport opportunity in the 2020-2021 budget. What I'm asking for is put your heads together, athletic directors, high school on down, take a small percentage cut and fund middle school athletics. Item 5 was the elimination of books purchased for the media center for the 2019-2020 budget. What's the differences? Reduction in curriculum work expenses. You've heard our teachers passionate about what we need and the 50 plus people that go in meeting monthly and our team leaders in the CIC committee. What is the impact in the classroom if we adopt the 2020-2021 budget? Reduction in curriculum purchases. Item 7, impact on the classroom, outdated educational material. We're ready to go up our tech and our science in the classrooms, and we're going to lock on purchases. Item 8, change to some early childhood programs. Specific to what and where. The rumors are asking what's happening to young fives, what's happening to elementary classroom sizes, what's happening to Great Start readiness. Will Curious Kids be there if I need them? Certainly the needs at the elementary to social distance are far different than what we can expect out of our high school students. We need early childhood programs with safety in mind. Item 9, reduction of the number of parapros. Our students with special needs, both physical and developmental, need support of parapros. Some students utilize parapros on a one-on-one basis. Parapros support teachers in the classroom. I've seen at our elementaries, one parapro follow that student for 5 years in the elementary. There's a strong relationship. Item 10, a reduction in planned capital outlay. I need the details of the 2019-2020 budget costs versus the 2020-21 costs. Define what capital outlays are being reduced. In closing, our board members, the public, our employees, and taxpayers need transparent answers on the detailed cost and impact of those 10 items. The proposed cut as presented will result in a painful financial cut to our entire educational community. I appreciate that we are in uncertain times of a pandemic. Funding shortfalls and declining enrollment numbers are uncertain. The 2020-2021 budget appears as a worst-case scenario. My vote today on the proposed 2020-21 budget hinges on your financial answers. I'll comment on the foundation that was brought forward by Bo and Rusty and Kurt. From Comstock to KPS, right now in their budgets, you will see a resolution of authorizing issuing of notes in anticipation of state school aid fund. When our foundation falls below 7% and maybe as low below 3%, have you prepared the documents to obtain a loan? A document prepared that may be as much as $19 million. Are we going to have to borrow money for school operations if the fund balance falls below 3%? Can we meet our payroll and accounts payable debt on 9/15/2020 without borrowing funds? I will hold the rest of my comments at the time that we vote on the budget. Randy, thanks for having me make my comments per our policy manual on comments by board personnel. Thank you again.
Are there any other trustees that would like to make some comments at this time?
Randy, this is Bo. Just a quick comment. Very appreciative of the public comment tonight. High quality, thoughtful comments. It gives us good food for thought. It also gives us a window into how complicated Mark's world is. There are so many different considerations to be balanced as we move through this. So appreciated hearing the comments tonight.
Thanks, Bo.
Randy,
Yes,
it's Rusty here. I'm not concerned. I just think our reality is when we go back in the fall, I just want the public to understand that, this disease will spread. I just don't know how it won't. How bad it will, I don't know, but I just want the public to be prepared that, and we don't really know what to expect, but I think the reality is we're going to see more disease this fall, and we're going to see it in our school buildings. Our school buildings closed down. The reality is we don't know how we're going to react. We don't know how the government's going to react. We don't know how the community is going to react. We've seen communities all throughout the country and the world react differently. So we just need to hold on. Also, the reality is, assuming all kids do return to school and we have less teachers, class sizes are going to increase. We don't like it, but it's just the reality. So anyway, that's the end of my comments. Thanks, Randy.
Thank you. Any other comments from trustees this evening? Okay, we'll move to our required action items. The first one is to approve the amended budget appropriation resolutions for 2019-20. Is there a motion, please?
Randy, what page is that?
I don't have page numbers on my
Page
screen.
6?
Sorry.
Yeah, it must be.
I
All
think
right.
I can do it, Randy. President Van Antwerp, I move that the Board of Education adopt the resolutions for the general fund, debt retirement fund, building and site sinking fund, and the school services funds budget for 2019-20 as presented.
Is there a second, please? Thank you, Terry. Discussion? Okay, Barb, this is a roll call vote, please.
Mrs. Wilson,
No.
Mr. Rathburn,
Yes.
Dr. Shelton Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Van Antwerp,
Yes.
Mrs. Novario,
Yes.
Mr. Snyder,
Yes.
Mr. Droppers.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion to approve the 2019-20 budget amendments is approved. Our next required action item is the budget appropriation resolutions for 2020-21. Is there a motion, please?
Yes, Mr. President, I'd like to make the motion that the Board of Education adopt the resolution for the general fund, debt fund, retirement fund, building and site sinking fund, and the school service fund budget for 2020 and 2021 as presented.
Is there a second, please?
Second. It's Rusty.
Thank you, Rusty. Discussion?
I think
Mr.
this one's going to have a little bit more discussion, Randy. So yeah, go ahead, Joanne.
Mr. President, you've not provided the detail that I need to make a data-driven decision of a yes vote on the 2020-2021 budget. You have not explored possible cuts away from the educational community. I cannot support this 2020-2021 budget as the worst case scenario and begin to start negotiations based upon a worst case scenario.
Any other comments from trustees?
Yeah, Randy, it's Rusty here. You know, I expressed my concerns on middle school sports last meeting. I'm still struggling significantly regarding that. I just think there's so much that does for kids in a very tough portion of their life. You know, for some kids, this is what keeps them engaged, and I'm really struggling supporting this budget with a middle school sports cut because it's not the sports, it's what it does for the kids to create engagement, mostly, especially from some of our more challenged populations. So I'm struggling, Randy, and unless you know we can have some assurances that this can be explored, I most likely can't support this budget.
Rusty, thank you. The four of us, Bo, you, me, Randy, went through this from 2010 to 2012. There was input from the board. There was buy-in from our educators and from our parents, and we don't see this time. And prioritize and list, and we all have our personal preferences called forward. It's about committed to all and education in the classroom. What's always driven this board is educational dollars in the classroom and safety in the classroom. I agree with the earlier comments. I don't see that budget. PPE and sanitizer and dispensers and disinfecting school buses and building partitions. I don't see the results of this yet, and I don't see the budget for this. And I really appreciate your comments. Thank you. And then we go to Bo. How often we've heard that we live and die by a 7% fund balance. There's no doubt that we're going to have to take out a loan, but at what cost? we can repay that loan. We need to make educational dollars and safety a continued priority in this budget.
And this is Celeste speaking. I just wanted to say that I lived through that in an administrative position, and it was a painful spot to be in. My hope is that we can get past this, but there are so many variables, and it's not the same as it was in previous years. But I do have hope, and I truly believe that we can make the right choices.
Hey,
Thank you,
Rusty.
Celeste.
I just want to reiterate my comments from last week's meeting about the middle school sports. I really feel that there are some possible ways that we could make that happen without funding it in the general fund budget. We have all kinds of community members that we can spearhead something to get something going, whether it's just intramural sports between our 3 middle schools, or whether it's something beyond that. I think there are some other ways that we could potentially make that happen. I agree that it's important. I've had kids that have participated, and they were participants in some extraneous sports that, you know, aren't necessarily a big time deal for everybody, but it made a difference in what happened to them in high school. So I agree with you. I see that it's important, but I think that maybe there are some other ways to attack that without using general fund dollars to do it. So just my thoughts.
Thanks, Terry.
Hey, Randy, I got a quick question for Mark, maybe, or somebody knows, because we're talking about middle school sports here still. Are there any other districts that we are aware of locally that is abandoning middle school sports? And that's a question for administration.
I'm not familiar with what other schools are doing in the area, Rusty. I don't know what our league is doing or what the area schools are doing. That information hasn't been shared out.
I'm sorry, go on.
No, I just think it's one of our points of pride, you know, for this community. And, you know, one of our biggest things we do as a board is we represent our owners. We don't represent our customers necessarily, or our stakeholders, but we more than anything, it's the owners are our number one. And I think by eliminating middle school sports, it's a pride for this community. And I just think our owners and me as an owner, I would be frankly disappointed. And I'm not an engaged anymore. I don't have kids in middle school anymore, but I just see the importance of it on so many levels.
And I'll just this is Celeste speaking. I will just repeat what I said last week, and it also couples with what Terry said, and that is until we know how the other districts are doing, who are our competitors, and intramural might be one way to go. There are a variety of ways we can do that, but then it's also webs out into other matters as well, as far as the spectators and distancing with spectators. So we have a lot of questions, but we also have a lot of unknowns, and this is going to be difficult. I don't care how we slice it, it's going to be difficult. Thank you.
Thank you, Celeste. But I think administration gets the message that middle school athletics are important to the board, and you know, I think they will keep that in mind as hopefully funding gets restored, and until then, support some alternative efforts to continue that maybe don't involve funds from the district.
Hey, this is Kurt, you know, and I look at it differently because we don't have even, the governor said we're going to have school. We have to have a budget. We don't know if we're going back to school because the governor hasn't told us. So this is the best effort our administration has, and I will support it because The government hasn't given us the leeway to tell us what we're going to do or what they want us to do. And we have to have a budget, and to micromanage at this point without even knowing what's going on from the people in Lansing is, you know, we can't do that. I mean, we'll know more by September, but we don't know now. And so they have to have a budget. This is their budget, and I'm going to support it.
Thank you, Kurt.
Agreed.
Hey, Randy, this is Bo.
Yes, sir.
You know, I think about why things are gridlocked in Lansing and Washington. There are 1,000 reasons to say no, and but there is a big reason to say yes, and I'm a yes. I'm a yes, and I also look forward to amending this budget in the future, and probably more than once.
Thank you, Bo. Any other comments from trustees?
Randy, it's Rusty here again, and I'm going to get off the sports topic for, okay? Maybe redirect us. This is a question for Mark, and I'm sorry I didn't catch this earlier, but I'm looking at the school building budgets, and it just seems to be a lot of discrepancy on what happened in 1920 and what the expectation is for 2021, and maybe there's some adjustments being made that we're not aware of. But looking at some of the numbers, it looks like Amberley has like 82% of funding that they had last year, while Central L is at 93, Haver Hill's at 97, Lake Center's at 100% funding. Moore's Bridge, it looks like, is at 81% of funding last year. So some of those elementary schools seem to be taking a hit. Central Middle School is at 94% funding per building. North Middle School 95. West Middle's 96, and then it looks like Central High School is 101% of funding compared to last year, while Northern's at 98. So it's like there's not a whole lot of funding cuts going on in the middle and at the building level, okay? But some of those lower levels seems to be taking a significant hit, and I just was wondering if that could be explained to us. The buildings that are taking a hit, specifically Amberley and Moore's Bridge.
I'd have to look into that if the board wants an answer. I don't have it off the top of my head. I'd have to explore that, Rusty.
Because it's kind of concerning. So.
Hey, Randy, so I want to build on Rusty's comment because, you know, we had a presentation from the Amberley parents, you know, right before the pandemic hit. And, you know, it's important that we get back to that issue. I mean, I know we've been dealing with all the pandemic issues and that needs to take a forefront, but if somehow in this shuffle, there is something that could be an inequity, I think we need to be very sensitive to that. And so, I mean, I'm just signaling to my colleagues, as a part of this budget issue, not tonight, but perhaps soon, is we need to get back to at least look at that issue.
No, appreciate that, Bo, and I believe it's scheduled for our July board meeting.
So if I didn't want to put Paula or anyone on the spot on that on Rusty's question, but Paula, if you have a response to that, you're certainly welcome to provide an answer.
Rusty, just to confirm, are you looking at the program level page of the resolution? When referring to your numbers, are you looking at a different document?
I'm looking at page 23 of our board pack. It's kind of a nice document that it's called the 2019-21 General Fund Budget Overview. That says Program Revenues and Expenditures.
I would have to work with Brad. Those numbers are rolled up based on my Excel document by location. So salary changes would have happened in the buildings, and then building supply accounts are reset to a estimated enrollment number at the district provided level, and any of their SOAR money that was left over from the previous year is removed, and so their budgets are reset, so to speak. So there's a combination of two things that are happening in that budget based on building location. It's the supply account reset, and then any of the related staffing reductions that would have occurred.
But Paula, just that's more speculation, though, correct?
No, I reset supply accounts at the building levels back to zero, and then put in at estimated levels, and then the reductions that were given to me from the budget, and that would cause changes as well.
And
So the
Paula Rutsky, this is Brad. I can jump in, I think, help clear it up. So the staff, the preliminary layoff list affected some buildings more than others. That will realign as staffing is finalized, because obviously we may need to shift teachers from one building to another. That piece has not happened yet for this budget. So if you're looking at that, ultimately, I think you said like Lake Center's at 100%. They didn't have any teachers laid off from that building, where Morris Bridge, Amberley, they had more than one person laid off. But that will realign as we finalize staffing getting into the year.
Yes, thanks, Brad. That makes a lot of sense.
Paula, can I tag on Rusty's question? So we've lost that spend it or lose it mentality as we go from the 2019-2020 budget to 2020-2021. So is there some budget dollar carryovers that went unspent that also could impact those dollars?
Oh, absolutely, Joanne. That calculation that is done isn't done until all expenditures are final for the year. So we still have things that are happening related to 1920 once we get past June 30th, before we have final numbers on both the revenue and the expenditure side for our budget. That's why it takes us 2 months to get ready for the auditors. So yes, there could be money unspent.
Good job, Paula.
Any other comments from trustees?
Yeah, Randy, just one last comment. It's Rusty here. As I said, I'm still struggling with the sports thing. I 100% feel for administration, and I'm probably gonna most likely vote no. But once hopefully we pass it and we can move forward. But I would just like to do everything we can to get that reinstated. Thank you.
Point taken. Any other comments from trustees? Very good. Barb, can we take the roll call vote, please?
Yes. Rathburn,
No.
Dr. Shelton Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Van Antwerp,
Yes.
Mrs. Novaria,
Yes.
Mr. Snyder,
Yes.
Mr. Droppers,
Yes.
Mrs. Wilson.
No.
Very good. The motion passes. Thank you. Our next required action item is a resolution to set 2020 tax rates. Is there a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Board of Education adopt a resolution which sets tax rates for both summer and winter levies as presented.
Thank you
Is there a
both.
second, please?
Joanne Wilson, I second the motion.
Thank you. Paula, would you like to provide some information?
This is a formality for us to set these tax rates so that our L4029 form can be sent to the city of Portage and the other taxing entities that we receive tax revenue from. That'll be signed by 2 of the board members, and then I communicate that out accordingly. They put tax rates on the tax bills, and then revenue is generated back to the district, because our per pupil foundation allowance is split between tax revenue that's generated, and then stating it's received.
Thank you, Paula. Any questions for Paula? Thank you, Paula. Can we take the roll call vote, please?
Dr. Shelton Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Van Antwerp,
Yes.
Mrs. Navaria,
Yes.
Mr. Snyder,
Yes.
Mr. Droppers,
Yes.
Mrs. Wilson,
Yes.
Mr. Rathburn.
Yes.
Very good. The motion passes. We have one action item left, and that's to approve a bus purchase. Is there a motion, please?
Yes, Mr. President, I'd like to make the following motion that the Board of Education approve the purchase of 5 77-passenger buses and 1 lift bus from Holland Bus for a total of $590,128 to come from the 2019 bond fund bus purchase allocation.
Thank you, Kurt. Is there a second?
I second the motion, Randy.
Thank you, Bo. Is Ron or Paula going to present this?
Yeah, I will. You have before you a recommendation as Trustee Droppers stated for 5 77-passenger buses and 1 lift bus from Holland for $590,128. And that is coming from our 2019 bond fund bus purchase allocation. Again, this is sort of our regular replacement schedule. We generally do 6 buses annually to keep our buses in rotation and in good order mechanically and sound for the safety of our kids. I'd also would note that we will be replacing, right now we have about 4 buses that are currently going to be sold out, and 2 more that may be sold out later in the year. So there would be an even exchange for these 6. We have some high mileage buses that are starting to show their wear. Also, I would note for you that when we look back at our 2016 bond, along with our 19 bond, we had allocated $3 million for bus purchases through the bond program. This final purchase here is the final 6. Out of that, we have 31 buses totally purchased right now with this purchase, and that's because I think the board approved an additional lift bus 2 years ago. And so that brought us to a total of 31. That is under the budget that we had allocated for purchasing buses. We're currently at $2,807,179, which leaves us approximately $192,000 remaining in bond funds as a part of that allocation.
Thank you, Ron. Any questions for Ron?
No, Randy, this is expensive, but it's straightforward.
Yes, but it's not out of operation money, it's out of bond money. So the general public has to understand that this is not taking away from operational money.
For sure, Kurt. Thank you very much for bringing that up. Any other comments? Hey, Barb, let's take the roll call vote, please.
Mr. Van Antwerp,
Yes.
Mrs. Navaria,
Yes.
Mr. Snyder,
Yes.
Mr. Droppers,
Yes.
Mrs. Wilson,
Yes.
Mr. Rathburn,
Yes.
Dr. Shelton Harris.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you very much. The motion passes. We've reached the end of our agenda. Thank you very much for everyone's participation. And this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. Good meeting, everyone.